Hopefully the days of bad audio are gone. There we go. I got it. That was like the third take that I did. I have a lav, however you want to say it, LAV. Um, I got a few comments from, different people talking about how the audio on my end was maybe not the best, and I'm just hoping that goes away along with my inability to talk more slow and moderately, especially when I get into a mood of something that I'm excited about. Today, or see, I just did it. I did it again. Just who I am. It's the way I am. I talk a little bit on the faster side when I get excited. Um, I want to talk about how our minds have a tendency to make life scarier than they are. I actually lost um, scarier than they are. My mind has a tendency to make life scary. No, I said our minds. There we go. Yes, our minds. I had to like retrack and make sure I understood what it was that I said. Our minds have a tendency to make life scarier than they are. That's why it didn't make sense because it's not they are. Our minds have a tendency to make life scarier than it is. There we go. Do I need to say it a fourth time? No. Yes, our minds have a tendency to make life scarier than it is. I actually lost sleep last night because I got a warning that my car registration was like expiring, and it actually wasn't. It was just like a kind of like a miscommunication thing. And so I've been trying to like budget and make sure that I have money for everything. And I thought that I was going to have to spend money to, you know, renew my car registration, and that wasn't the case. And I lost sleep because I didn't know something. I lost sleep because I didn't know something, and I thought that was funny. Let's look at all the other times in my life that I've lost sleep when I didn't need to. I remember back in high school. Actually, I don't, and that's the funny part. I um, I remember somebody very close to me, very near and dear to me, somebody that I confide in. They asked me if I remember, different parts about high school, and I don't. High school was fucking scary. It was. I didn't like high school. I really didn't. But I don't remember parts of it that at the time were so, I don't know, severe and important. When teachers were like, you need to know this. You need to. No, you fucking don't. I don't use more than half the shit that I learned in high school. I don't. Um, I think the closest thing to anything that you really need to remember in life if you're going to pursue higher education is, bachelor's, master's, PhD. Um, Shit, high school is like elementary. It's really not that big of a deal. I mean, full honesty on my end, I don't think that a majority of the things that we learn in the education system in general are really like that important. Um, I've learned more shit about myself and more things that are actually important for my own fucking life in therapy alone, like, and that's on some real shit right there. But let's talk about how the mind has a tendency to make life scarier than it is, because it fucking does. Because, we overthink things, we isolate ourselves, we, don't reach out to people when we need to. We do all these different things and we isolate ourselves, we close ourselves off, and that's just the reality of it. Um, I am just so fascinated by how often this happens, how it does tend to be like a reoccurring theme, right? That it's just like, well, if you realize at one point that you don't need to take it that seriously because it's not that, I mean, is it really that serious? I would argue not. I mean, I understand other people would argue so, but I don't really think it is. I think that the things that we incessantly worry about, right? Maybe like if we were to actually just like look at the logistics, right? How many times for you has this happened where you overthink and overthink and overthink and overthink and worry and worry and worry and worry and lose sleep and lose sleep and lose sleep and lose sleep? Meanwhile, all you had to fucking do is look at the logistics, is ask questions, is reach out to people, right? But no, what does our mind like to make us do? Isolate and think that we know. We don't fucking know. We don't know anything. And, it's funny how oftentimes we unnecessarily stress ourselves out, give ourselves anxiety, worry, get depressed over shit that is actually not as bad as we previously thought it was, you know? Um, I remember in high school when I worried about shit that I don't even give a fuck about anymore. I remember when, I don't know, there was something in the past year that I worried about that I don't give a fuck about anymore. And that's just the reality of life, right? We carry so much shit with us. We don't know things that if we did know, we wouldn't worry. And that's fascinating, right? I think it's so interesting how much that can change the dynamic of the experience of life just by knowing. But it's like there's something that's stopping us from taking this step, taking, that step into action of like knowing rather than, guessing and wondering. It's like the information's right fucking there. This is a piece of paper. Just kidding, it's my hand. The information is right fucking there. If the information is down here, just pick it up and look at it, right? It's there, it's available. And I mean, the other thing that I want to look at too is that because I do this to myself. I mean, all of this shit is self-inflicted. If you had experience with this in the past decade of your life, and you have the capacity to reflect on it because you're a human being and you are a human being and you can reflect on it, so you might as well do it, right? And realize that, oh, I've had an experience like that. That happened before. What do I do about it? Oh, well, I don't worry about it. I look at the logistics, I ask questions, I do this, that, and the other. Cool. What does that do? Get rid of all of the unnecessary chronic worry, stress, anxiety, depression, this, that, and the other that leads you to be a fucking hermit of a human being and leads to other things that you really don't fucking need in your life. And that's just the reality of it. That really is. So I'm just mind blown by how often our minds make life scarier than it actually is. Life's not that scary. It really isn't. It's more so just life. Like this is life, right? This is life. What our minds do to life is this. Nope. Still right there. Right? And that's it. And when you take a step back and you look at everything and you learn from the past experiences where you did have anxiety unnecessarily and you're like, oh, if I just check the logistics, oh, if I just ask questions, what's the worst that can possibly fucking happen? And that's another thing too. Something that I've learned along my line of work in life coaching is, say for instance, you're afraid of something happening, right? If you ask yourself, okay, well, if that happens, what would be so bad about that? Right? And then you have an answer, right? And then the answer of what would happen, if that happened and what would be so bad about that, then you ask yourself again, okay, and with that, what would be so bad about that if that happened? And you just keep going. What would be so bad about that if that happened? And what would be so bad about that if that happened? And what would be so bad about that if that happened? And you start to realize that this overinflated idea of how fucking terrifying life can get and how scary it is, it's a fucking balloon that you can, right? And that's it. Life's really not that fucking scary. All the things that I used to, that I, I almost just said all the things that I used to scary. All of the things that I used to scary, I no longer scary about. All of the things that I used to worry about, I no longer worry about. Not entirely true. Not entirely true. There are some times that I have to catch myself and I'm like, oh, you've been here before. You don't need to do that again. Right. And that's just the reality of it. So life's not really that scary. If it is, maybe you just need to take a step back and look at things and then start asking the questions. Well, if that were to happen, what would be so bad about that? Oh, that is what would be so bad about that. And if that were to happen, what would be so bad about that? Oh, that is what would be so bad about that. And then when you really start to trickle it down, you start to realize that there's really nothing to fucking worry about.